Friday to you. It is January the 30th. Many people across the country, yep, it's good morning. It is 10:49 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate you, Carrie. Hey, Sharon, how are you? What's up, Witch? Conchita, good to see you. Cheryl. Lanny, good to see you. Is it Lanny or Laney? Did you know? Yes, I do know that I got the notification that Don got arrested 2 hours ago, I think, when I was at the gym. What's up, Ash? And I saw that. I did see that. We're gonna talk about it just briefly. I'm gonna share my thoughts about that. And I will let you know kind of what I think. Because you're here. So I guess my opinion as well was that's right, Laney. Laney, got it. You know what? Okay, so in the thing, I wasn't sure if it was you or not, because last night it was Lanie, and on here it was Lany. And so I wasn't sure it was the same person. So I thought about it and I was like, is it Laney or is it not Laney? I wasn't sure it was you. Yeah. So what's up, coolest mom, Mama Dukes? Good to see you, Audra. Folks, listen, if you were joining me anywhere else other than TikTok, I do not get to see when you rotate in. So just say hello so I can greet you if you would like to be greeted. I got it. So wait. Are you Laney or are you Lonnie? Because so listen, somebody was in my thing last night and they told me theirs was Laney. If feeling like having to know everything is a bad thing. Okay, Blue Honey Pot, hold on a second. We'll get there. So, hey, can somebody do me a favor that you're almost done with yesterday's replay? I love that, Jennifer. So listen, if somebody can grab the link that I put over there on YouTube and throw it into the chat on Facebook. If you want to join the panel and have a conversation with me, you do that via the link that is not you guys. You do that via the link that is in the chat, okay? For you guys, you just request to come on up, and that's how we make things happen, okay? All right, so lots to talk about today, and let me just kind of lay out for you guys what's up, Desi? Let me lay out for you kind of what this looks like for me today, because the grandbabies get out early today, and so during that time, I have to make a decision, a choice, whether I'm just going to shut down and then come back live again, or whether I'm going to have somebody come up on the panel over here and host. The challenge with that is you guys over here won't be able to see what's happening on TikTok, even though you'll be able to hear it. You'll just be looking at a blank screen. So I guess we'll kind of rock it out and see how it goes. Maybe you guys I shut down and I bring back. You know what I mean? So we'll go with that. Do you not understand that the Southern, I don't know what WIGR, the Democrats, the process. So, yeah, Cam. So, Muse. If you want to have a conversation about how the political parties ended up switching their ideology, we can absolutely do that. We can talk about how the political parties ended up switching their ideology right around the civil rights movement in the 60s. We can talk about that if you would like to. 100%. Good morning, Tam Bam. What's up, Masani? Hey, Kelly. Good to see you. Awesome, Cam. Appreciate that. Good morning, Cindy. I got you. Okay, Cindy, no worries. No worries. All right, so folks, I have two different prompts that are kind of up here today. And before I dig into both of them or either of them, I'm going to go ahead and address, because everybody's going to flood in here and say, did you see that Don Lemon got arrested? The answer is yes. Good morning, Daisy Shell. And good morning, 5077. Oh, great. I love that you liked the workshop last night within One Heart. What's up, Jen Yaya? Good to see you. Good morning, Kel Pete. What's up, Deborah Richards? Let me see what else we got going on. Holy geez. It's a lot. Yeah. So can I give you guys my thoughts? And so number one, a judge already talked about, whether or not Don could be charged or whether or not he could be arrested. And, the judge originally declined for this. So there's not been any talk about like what the charges are going to be, or if they're going to stick or any of those types of things. Okay. So now I'm going to share what may not be a popular opinion. Okay. So this is my opinion. So it's okay. All right. So remember how yesterday we were talking about good necessary trouble? What's up, Tara? Do y'all remember how we were talking about good necessary trouble? Right. Oh, Glory. That's what I'm saying is that last week a judge declined to charge him. Okay. Thank you, Cam. Appreciate you. So listen, I want to let me say this to you all. So number one, the charges aren't going to stick, whatever they might be, and and here's the thing. Okay, we have seen this administration um, arrest folks and charge folks and not get anywhere several times already. Right? We saw this with Tish James. We saw it with whoever it is, right? But do you remember yesterday when we were talking about? Do you remember yesterday when we were talking about, or the other day when we were talking about good necessary trouble? Okay. Yes. Thank you, Blue Honey Pot. Comey. All right. So listen, for me, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that um, if what the objective was, if the objective was to bring attention to the fact that the pastor of a church was also the head of a particular um, of an ICE department, right, or an ICE location, right? If that was the goal, one of the things that I would ask myself is what would be the most effective way to get that information out and make that be the center of the story. So one of the things that I talk about quite a lot is if you are an advocate, if you are an activist, and at some point you become the story and not the folks. I know he interviewed the pastor of the church. I saw it, but follow me. So Brandy, let's talk about that. Okay? Y'all, I told you my opinion is probably not going to be popular. Okay? My opinion is not going to be popular. Let me start with this. Do I think that Don Lemon should have been arrested? No. Do I think the charges are going to stick? No. Do I wish that this was not a thing? Yes. And the reason why I wish that this was not a thing is because it detracts from what the actual issue is. And the actual issue is that the pastor of this Christian church is also heading up this division or this division of ICE, right? This ICE location. Like that's supposed to be the focus. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so for me, that's the thing. So when we think about the best way to utilize platforms, the best way to advocate, and the best way to be an activist, right? The best way to do those things, you all please do me a favor and do not engage with thank you, Uka. Thank you, Uka. Thank you, Uka. All right. So again, when we talk about good morning, Sherry, when we talk about good necessary trouble, okay, when we talk about good necessary trouble, you have to ask yourself if the trouble that you're making is good, is it necessary? And does it accomplish what the actual task is? So, Muse, here's what I'm going to do for you. Okay. So, Muse, you are being you just got a lot going on in the comments. And here's what I'm saying is I've requested that you come to the panel. Okay. And if you don't do that, right, then you'll eventually be booted, not because you have a difference of opinion, but because you are just like bombarding the comments and not willing to come up and have a conversation. Okay. So if you really want to discuss the things that you're saying and you believe what you're saying and you want to have a legitimate conversation, then please do everyone a favor and just join the panel and we can talk about it. Okay. So that's the invitation. Accept it or you'll be gone. All right. So this is my opinion. My opinion is no, Don Lemon should not be. So, Danny, do you think it brought attention to the lack of free press? What do you mean, lack of freedom of the press? No, I don't within one heart. And I'll tell you why. He went into a church. He went into a church during church service. And the issue is that on camera, the pastor asked him several times to leave. And he kept saying, okay. And then he kept asking another question. Right? So the issue is you were asked to leave. And you kept asking questions. I'm just, this is going to be, so let me just say this. I don't care that they went into a church. Church buildings are not sacred, sanctimonious, or holy in and of themselves. Church buildings are business expenses and and that's it. Okay, so again, everybody is not listening. So when you all know they don't pay taxes, Rudin, so there's no tax. We don't have any charges yet, Hell on Wheels. Maybe they've had charges since I went live, right? But earlier today, there were no charges specified. So let me be very clear. I'm going to say this again, okay? And it's so opinionated boomer. That was a very weird way to phrase that question. You said, so wait, you don't support Don Lemon. What do you mean? So let me be clear. Here's what I've said. Do I believe that Don Lemon should have been arrested? No. Do I believe that whatever charges they come up with will stick? No. I don't. I don't believe he should have been arrested, and I don't believe that the charges will stick. Okay. Here's what I will say in addition to that. Okay. And this is just my personal opinion. If the goal was to bring to the attention of people that the pastor of this church was also heading up this division of ICE, right? If that was the goal, is this the best way to get it done? Like, has that been the focus of all the conversations? Or has the focus ended up being they went into a church during a church service? Has the focus been this representative got arrested and is facing X amount of dollars? Has the conversation been around everything other than that? Because what I don't see is I don't see a lot of media outlets, whether they are mainstream or independent. I don't see a lot of media outlets that are focused on the fact that this is supposed to be a Christian pastor in this church and that that's what he's doing. Good morning, Tracy. And so I've held this position for a really long time. If you are advocating for someone or against something, or if you are an activist against something or for something, okay? I've always said this, when you become the bigger story, when you become the story, that's an issue. When the focus is on you and not the actual issue, right? That's a problem, because now the focus isn't on what you really want to highlight. And so for me, if I'm Don Lemon, right? I would be standing, I would be covering what's happening from outside. I'd be watching people go into the church, right? I would be contacting the pastor for an interview, right? This is the difference, right? You're not standing on a sidewalk. You're not in a public space. And so with that are risks. Y'all hear me? It's just a risk. You're going to take a risk when you go into a private place. And Light, feel free to come up to the panel and we can discuss it. If you want to come up here and discuss what I'm saying, please feel free to do so. Yeah, so like I said, I do not believe, of course, he'll make bail. I do not, just request up. I do not believe that the charges are going to stick. It'll be a lot of whoop to do, like it was with Tish James and James Comey, right? Yeah, ICE has gone into churches. Hey, Chuck. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. So, is this your first time coming into my live?
This is my first time, yes.
Awesome, great. So for those of you guys that are new, I don't do lives like regular debate, rage bait, scream, all the things that a lot of people do. I have 4 ground guidelines for being in the space. One is just be respectful. We don't use slurs in this space. We don't spam the comments, and we don't type in all caps because they are reserved for my moderators and my folks that are vision impaired. Other than that, that's it. We can have a great conversation. So go ahead. You wanted to say something about Don.
Yeah, so I agree with you that these charges are going to stick. I appreciate you bringing it up, and that this is kind of just a show of force, as you said. The only thing I disagree on is the idea that having civil disruption in the way that the protesters went about it at the church is an issue. It's not. There's nothing that they can truly do if the media doesn't focus on their message. Because they could release a statement all day, they could put out posts. They won't cover that. This did bring the charge or the idea or the allegation that pastor was an ICE officer or he was part of some division. But it was overshadowed by I believe the Trump administration's assertion that they were somehow terrorizing this church and they were causing them to be fearful of their worship, which is not the case. So I want to push back just slightly on the idea that this was not the way to go about it. I believe this was a perfectly valid way of doing it.
So here's my thing. So the question that I asked was this the best way to go about it? That's the question that I asked, right? And my point is simply this. And so when somebody says he didn't go inside a church, I'm literally looking at his ass standing inside the church. I watched him talk to the pastor inside the church.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah,
was absolutely there.
Yeah. So for the person in the comments that said he didn't go in the church, yeah, he did. His ass was in the church. So let me say this, okay? The reason why I said, was it the best way to go about it and bringing about attention? I'm not talking about releasing a statement. There are a lot of options in between releasing a statement and then going inside the church, right? There's a lot of different options. And so for me, this is my point. Guys, being rude and disrespectful isn't a crime. If it was, most of y'all's ass would be locked up. So I don't want to hear that he was rude and disrespectful. I don't care. So listen, you all want me to tell you if he was right or wrong. I'm not telling you that. You want to know why? Don Lemon is a grown man and he gets to choose what works for Don Lemon. Okay? So these were his choices. For me, okay? For me. And I am someone who has actively protested for a long time. What I have found to be the most effective thing ever is to protest in a way that that keeps the issue. I'm not implying shit, Michael James. I'm speaking plain English. If you are inferring something from my comments, that's on you, and I'm not responsible for your the way you interpret things. So I'm going to be very, very clear of what I said. Okay, here's what I said. I said, good morning, M Cloud. I said, I do not believe that Don Lemon should have been arrested. I do not believe the charges will stick. I do not believe it will be a thing at all, right? Um, and I also think that the amount of wind that this is sucking out of what's actually happening is wild to me. And folks, you cannot say to me, this is an example of them coming after journalists. Don't do that, because everybody knew when they made the choice to enter into a church uninvited during service, there was going to be risk involved. Everyone knew that. You go into a private establishment. We've seen people go inside of churches just protesting the religion, and they've gotten arrested for going into the church, or they've gotten removed for going into the church. And so my point is, if you know that there is an administration that is retaliatory, if you know that there is an administration that will bend the needle as much as they can to make a thing happen, right? Then you be smart about the way you want to do things. And so for me, so they just released more Epstein files, guys, like literally just now. Hold on, because I already said I was going to do this. So, okay, so done. Sorry, I just had to handle that because I'm okay. So, do you understand what I'm saying, Chuck? Is that what I'm saying is that okay? What do you believe the point of going in was? What was the point?
I think the point, and I don't want to speak for them, but from what I saw, because I kind of watched it unfold as it was being live streamed by Don, is they were very clearly calling out the pastor. I don't think anyone could really misinterpret what they were there for. They were laser focused on saying, he's an ICE agent. He's working with ICE. This is not a
Mhm.
he's not practicing what he's preaching, etc. So I don't think that the message was lost in the moment when people were watching. I think as over time, the media did not focus on that particular aspect. I think they were too focused on, oh no, look at the church being disrupted, rather than this person is who's supposed to be preaching, all these values of like, neighbor and, taking care of one another, blah, 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 is not actually doing that and is from his pulpit preaching hate. I think that was kind of their whole entire message.
But my point
and
is,
Don being there.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to talk about, just comment on the thing about Don being there. I mean, as a journalist, I don't see anything wrong with what he did, or even being there and knowing the consequences. That's just like a misdemeanor for trespassing. If he had gotten that, I don't think this would be a story. I think the story here is this administration is using the FACE Act wildly out of context, and no judge actually in Minnesota would take this case. They were even ghosted by a few, I think district attorneys that were like, we're not taking this.
Yes.
Good luck.
Right.
And now they've gone down the ladder, the rung so much, they found someone who's going to placate to Trump and his administration. I agree with you. This isn't going to go anywhere. This is just a show of force. It's just them saying we got Don because, I think Trump has a hate for Don Lemon ever since that interview he did back during his first
administration,
first time he was president.
Yeah,
he hates the man.
Right.
So I think this is a very petty show of force against Don Lemon.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with that part. My whole point about it is, and so like I said, I think that it's all baseless. I think that it won't hold legal water the same way that the things with Comey and Tish James didn't. What I also think is important though is that we have immediately right after it happened, okay, we have lost the actual point that was trying to be made. And I don't even know if it's a point to be made, right? So let me just say this. We've seen a lot of shitty pastors, haven't we? KA Omega. Like, do we care? Do we really care? And do we care enough to go in and disrupt? So here's what would be the difference for me is were they using that church for ICE activities? Were they using that church for ICE meetings? Were they using that church for anything related to ICE? Because if not, I don't understand the purpose of going into the church.
No, that's a good question. I would like to know that as well. I mean, if we could have some more investigative journalism into that particular pastor and his church, that'd be great.
Which
But
I think is
unfortunately,
what
it
we
seems
should have
like
done.
anybody targeting, yeah. Which I mean, but the initial, on site, journalism was just him showing up to this particular protest. I mean, I don't think John is a deep investigative journalist. I don't see him as that. Maybe someone like Ken Klippenstein would do something like that, but John Don is kind of like on site, kind of more like do it as it goes, kind of a journalist, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure someone's going to do it. Someone's going to do something eventually. I do feel like they're going to do an investigation, and they can't ignore. Like journalists would love to break a story about this pastor. So I hope that happens. I hope we get something.
It would be great. It would be great if that. But for me, I just think that that would have been far more effective, because one of the things that I believe, when you really want to be I believe when you really want to be effective as an advocate, as an activist, you take away any, for lack of a better word, ammunition they could use against you. So if you know that by going into a church during church service and with no warning and bringing people in and if you know that that is going to be used to negate the point and the purpose of you being there, you have to think 3 steps ahead. And this is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, the Democratic Party and progressive media is always 2 steps behind, because they don't think like those folks do. So if I know that that's going to be a thing that you're going to use against me, I'm going to take it away. I'm going to make it a non-issue. Yeah. So Cheryl, I don't know I can't speak for Don. I don't know what Don sees himself as or as not. What I would say is that what I have yet to hear is the purpose behind going into the church, right? Other than to say to people, we don't like the fact that you're a pastor and you're in charge of this ICE district. Other than that, what was the purpose?
I would say if someone's questioning Don's intent, he was there purely as a journalist. I watched the whole thing.
Agreed.
He was just asking questions. He never once did the chants or anything. He just was interviewing people, and he was there for 2 hours interviewing people. At no point did the pastor tell him to leave. He said that these people should leave.
When Don was interviewing him, he asked Don to leave.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, when he was interviewing Don. Yeah. So when Don was interviewing him, he asked Don to leave. And so that's why, and I don't.
He left shortly after that, right?
But here's my thing, right? So yeah, and he did. But this was my thing, is that so that I can tell you now, I watched him ask him to leave at least 3 times. And Don would say, okay, I am. And then he would ask another question. Yeah, but don't you think da 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 da, right? And I'm not saying that's horrible, bad, or whatever. I still don't think it's going to be a thing, right? But at that point, when somebody says, hey, yes, and could you please leave my church? That's the time that you get your shit and you go. Journalism or not. And if you don't, then, you open the door for certain things. And so, again, no, Michael James, nobody said it's a felony. I never said it's a felony. I have stated repeatedly, I do not believe he should have been arrested. I do not think that these are going to be any significant charges that stick. I do think that this is one of those things that is a distraction. And I don't believe that this is one of those, oh, we're going to target journalists specifically to shut them up. Like, I don't think that's what this is. Because if that was the case, there's some other folks like that they would have, that, you know what I'm saying? I just don't think that that's what this is.
I disagree. I wholeheartedly believe that this is because of how hard they're pursuing this very minor infraction, if we want to consider it that. I think this is an attempt to kind of show that, yes, if you are a journalist and if you do something that we would perceive to be disruptive, that we can use some, not even obscure law, but a law that was made to only protect Black people against a Black person, that who is a journalist. I think that's very specific. Like, journalists need to be aware, need to be fearful of doing anything that this administration will perceive disruptive or against their narrative. I do feel like this is one of those cases.
Well, so like I hear you. I also would say that here's what I would say is I think that they're,
and I agree with you. I think it is a distraction. It is absolutely a distraction.
yeah,
They are trying to push away because the Epstein files just got released, like you just said, and I can't
yeah,
wait
they
to read
did.
them. It is a distraction. It's distracting from the two unalivings that happened. It's a distraction from them kind of backing away from being as aggressive in Minnesota. They're never going to admit that. So them getting someone as high, very public as Don Lemon, you're right. It is a distraction. I do agree with that.
But here's my thing. So, right, when we talk about squashing media, right, and going after journalists, I see this more as of a nuisance because nothing is going to stick. I think when we talk about, so when I think about targeting journalists, so here's what I know, Shaq, right? Is if Don Lemon had not put himself inside of a church, he wasn't on the street covering a protest. He wasn't in a public space or whatever, right? When you put yourself in that position, you may get caught up in that position, right? And so, yeah, Rosa, well, journalists do take risks every day. And so this is my point. So I guess this is what I'm saying, folks, is I feel like when you are targeted, when you are doing absolutely everything right without question, and there's no gray areas, and people come for you, right? I think that that's okay. All right, you guys. I didn't say Don did anything wrong, Coworth. That's not what I said. You all are so busy wanting to argue, you're not even listening to what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand the point, and I do agree on a lot of points. My only thing I do push back on, and I do, is that they will find something, even if you're doing the right thing. This administration has proven, even if you don't do anything wrong, like Letitia James didn't do anything wrong when she bought whatever.
And that's what I just said, which is why nothing stuck.
Yeah, which is why nothing stuck. So they'll always try to find something. You could be squeaky clean no matter what you do, like the gentleman who was unalived by ICE agent. They try to find something on him. they will always try to assassinate your character based on like anything that they can find. The smallest thing, you jaywalked in like 2002. Suddenly you're a hardened criminal. This feels like that, and I don't know the term for it, but they do that. They're kind of doing it with Don right now. It's like he's done nothing other than show up and report things. Yeah, trespassing might have been the case here, and you could make a case for that, and I won't disagree, especially if that was the charge. But it's not the charge. The charge is the FACE Act, which is intimidating a religious, or a group of people to no longer,
and that's not going to fly.
Participate in their religion, which is not what happened.
Yeah, so and it's not going to fly. Right.
I'm on board with you on every point. That's the only one I'm not agreeing with is that.
Yeah, Rosa, he can be bringing light to the hypocrisy of the. You can say he's bringing light to the hypocrisy. You guys, being a fucking hypocrite is not a crime, and I know a ton of pastors that are hypocrites. There are pastors that are hypocrites everywhere across this country. I don't know why you're making that a thing. It doesn't matter. And let me just be clear, okay? Churches are not public spaces. Churches are privately owned by their congregations, and they are used for public assembly. But you may not assemble there if they don't want you to. Churches are not public. Well, Pluma, look it up. Look it up. Churches are privately owned.
Yeah.
Well, Pluma, you can say no, but listen, I don't care how many times you say no. You can say no like 50, 100, 11 times right now, and you will still be wrong. Good morning, Jody. Yes, churches are owned.
You're correct, yeah, by the congregation, usually through whatever organization they set up, yeah.
Yes. They are private businesses. Yeah, they are. I'm going to go ahead and invite you to come on up here, Pluma. Churches are there. Okay, so y'all, let me make sure y'all understand something.
I don't believe churches can't be public.
They cannot be. So listen, a church cannot be part of the public because we have a separation of church and state. Churches are not government owned, therefore they are private businesses and private property. A 501c3 is a nonprofit that is a private business. Do you know what a 501c3 is? Because I do. I know what a 501c3 is and a C4. It is a nonprofit, not a public business. This is what's wrong, is y'all using stuff and don't know what you're talking about. Churches are private. Don't mute her, Linda. She's trying, but don't mute her. When we say something is public, it's like your public library down the street. Your public library is owned by your government, and you can go into the public library.
Yeah, if churches were public, then you could petition like the local government to change something about it. You can't with the church,
right?
So no, they're not. They're private.
Yeah, churches are private businesses. Churches are private. Public is paid by taxpayers. Yes. Okay. Well, Squig, it's not that most churches have an LLC. The church building is typically built by the LLC, right? The business entity that is set up to become a nonprofit to not pay taxes. Y'all, churches are just real estate. That's it. A church building is like Microsoft headquarters is for Bill Gates. It's just the building. Like it's literally just the real estate for the business. It's the building. That's it. Churches are private. So when the pastor of the church says to you, leave, and you say, okay, I will, but da 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 da, and the pastor says, okay, but you need to leave now, and you say, okay, but da 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 da, you open the door. Whether it's excessive, whether it is reasonable, whether it will stick or not is irrelevant. You open yourself up for risk. Period. Pluma, I don't know what you're talking about when you talk about a federal grant. Federal grants don't go to any organization. Federal grants do. Okay, girl. Okay, Pluma, live in whatever world you want to live in. I can't. I'm not arguing fucking fact and reality with people. I'm not. I can't.
I think maybe what they were trying to connect is like, if that pastor is a federal agent, was he receiving federal funds for his church? That could be a thing. Again, investigative journalism would have to do that. I'm not going to make that allegation here because I'm not a lawyer or a journalist.
And so to me, so Shaq, that's what I'm saying.
Interesting,
but so Shaq, this is my thing. Girl, I don't care what you have a degree in. Wherever you got it from, it sounds like Trump University. I don't know where you got it from because wherever you got it from is wrong right now. But so Shaq, what you're saying is exactly my point. What I think would be incredible and amazing, right, is if when someone discovered the connection between this pastor and ICE, before just walking up in there in the middle of a church service on Sunday, right? For what I see a lot of happening right now, especially with members of Congress, is performance, right? So before this to do, what I think would have been incredible and amazing would have been to find out what federal dollars had or had not been given to this church and to this organization. What federal grants this pastor may or may not have ever applied for. Was the church being utilized for any of the ICE related activities that were happening in the area? Like all of those things would have been great information to know. And it would have gone a lot further than just popping up inside the church. Now, let me just be clear about something because somebody said, I think it was Christy Nome, would Jesus have supported going up into churches? Would Jesus have stormed a church? And nobody stormed the church, by the way. But the answer for me is yes. Jesus literally flipped over tables in a church, braided a whip, and whipped people's ass out the church. So the answer is yes. Jesus would have been right up in the church, braiding the whip and flipping over tables. Read your Bible.
Yeah, I do agree, and this is probably my last kind of statement. I think we're on the same page with a lot of this. My only thing is, like, when it comes to like protests and things like that, I don't think that in the eyes of the state, there will never be, especially this administration, I don't think there's ever going to be a way to correctly protest or to bring to assert allegations against anybody who they deem their ally. They're always going to find a way. So even if this was done squeaky clean, I'm sure they would have found a reason to arrest the woman who was heading up this protest. They would have found a reason to get Don Lemon. They would have said, you came with them, yada yada, you were in cahoots. I see this, like I said, I see this as just a show of force, a distraction. and trying to chill the idea that journalists should pursue going on site and being at protests and things like that because they don't say, "Oh, you're with the protesters." I think that sets a precedent, and that for journalists that has not been set before because there were journalists in Vietnam amongst the Viet Cong who did interviews and they were not arrested. So I think that's kind of interesting that we have now like journalists going with protesters now being arrested on through acts that do not cover the basis of what they were doing. I'm sure Don will be fine. He's got money.
He's gonna be more than fine.
He'll beat the charges.
Don gonna be more than fine. And listen, his whole platform just grew.
Eyes to him. Yeah, they're gonna drive more eyes to him, and that might be the flip side. Is like they might have messed up by giving him more attention because now he's gonna talk more about them.
Like, yeah,
kind of like investigate more stuff that they're doing.
Yeah, and so real talk. When you say, when you guys, let me just ask y'all something. When y'all say our voices are being silenced, everybody's still talking. Everybody's still talking. And every attempt that they make to discourage people or to intimidate people not to talk, it's not working. It's just simply not working. And so I just want y'all to understand that, what I see are these big, huge reactions like the sky is falling. Appreciate you, Cam. And, whatever. And the reality is the world that we are living in today is the exact same world that we were in yesterday, pretty much. Don Lemon being picked up while he was covering the Grammys, Emmys, Oscars, whatever he was covering, doesn't change anything. Don Lemon got money. Again, this is one of those other things too. If he had arrested like somebody, some regular, average, whatever, yeah, it would have been a problem. It would have been a problem. But Don got money. He gonna be just fine, and it is what it is. So my point behind this is one, I would still love to know because I've still yet to know what's the actual purpose for the protests that took place, and what the intent was. And then I think second to that for me is, was this the best way to go about it? Now, those two things are separate from should anybody be arrested and will the charges stick? The answer is no on both of those two things. This is just a distraction. And that's because some more of them damn Epstein files came out today. But appreciate you, Shaq.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. I love your show.
Yeah, appreciate you. You too. Appreciate you. Yeah, and for me, it's definitely a circle 3. For me, 100%. So, in light, I tried to bring you up, but it didn't work. Yeah, so Sister Chris, when you say exposing the pastor as the ICE director was the point, did you have to be standing inside the church to do that? And was that the best way for it to be the most effective most effective messaging? For me, what would have been a whole lot more effective was to have all of the paperwork about like what were his actions with ICE, what raids did he participate in, where were the meetings taking place, was the church being utilized, and then asked him. And then ask him about those things. Like, to me, that just makes sense. Right. So again, you all don't have to like my opinion. I just do have an opinion. That's it. I have an opinion. Again, I do not think he should have been arrested. I do not think any significant charges are going to stick. I do think it's a distraction from everything else that's going on. And I don't know that it served a great purpose that's helpful to the people. Good morning, Survivor. How are you? Survivor, did you mean to request up to the panel? Nope, I guess not. I guess not. Okay. So anybody else? No worries, Survivor. I got you. Appreciate you, Carla. Donna's gonna be just fine. Cameron, I don't know that I agree with most, but these weren't most protesters. Let me be clear. These weren't most protesters. This was Don Lemon. This was a representative, right? An actual politician, right? These weren't just random people. Like, so I think the one thing that I want you all to understand is that to some degree this was a coordinated event. This was coordinated, right? People got together and determined when they were going to go and how they were going to go, and it was coordinated. That's why they all knew where to be there. And so for me, the questions I would have is, what was the purpose of going when you went? And too much of what I see, even things that are valid, too too much of what I see are those valid things being done in a way that is performative, and they are being done in a way that is performative that actually misses the mark because you lose it because of the performance. And so, Farah, again, when we talk about good trouble, what I want to know is, was it, because we always talk about good trouble, but was it good, necessary trouble? No, Bella T, there's no damn relationship between there is no damn relationship between Don Lemon getting arrested and Nicki Minaj getting her gold card. Nobody gives a damn. Those two things are not connected. Right. So share with me what makes it necessary. Share with me. And the thing that I would ask you, the thing that I would ask you is, when you say necessary, I want you to be able to tell me how it's necessary and what it applies to and the benefits to the public in it being necessary.
Hey, Dani. So my thing is, the reason why I say it was good trouble and he did what he was supposed to do is because, one, I work a lot because I work in the healthcare field, right? And I go to school. One, first of all, the protester was already in the church. He did not bring the protesters there. That's number one. Number two, he would just uh, letting us know, let us see the protesters that's going on. He did not organize it. He just was minding his own business, but going to different places, talking to people. That's number one. Number two, in the midst of him doing that, it was shown that he exposed the pastor and some of the members in the church. So at the end of the day, I don't see how people don't see what was his point of doing what he did. He goes everywhere and do the same thing. The church is no different. We missing a lot of people missing the point of looking at. Let's talk about how he exposed the pastor of being an ICE agent.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Because when you say he didn't lead them there, I never claimed that he did. Right. What I said is that he showed up there knowing they were there, which means someone told him they were going. He showed up when they showed up. Okay. So that means he's part of the conversation and the coordinating and the plan of the event, right?
I can't necessarily say that because you have to think about it. He goes to a lot of states and a lot of places and talk to people. So he said, okay, let's go to the church. We see a lot of people over here.
But that's not what happened. But that's not what happened, right? He didn't just happen to randomly show up at this one church on Sunday morning.
What I thought and I thought that's what he did. I didn't think he was organizing.
Well, I didn't say he organized it.
He planned these people there or anything.
I didn't say he planned them. Here's what I said is that, in my opinion, tell me, this is what I want to know. How did he know where to show up?
Because if you walking around and you talking to people, you want to ask questions, you're going to go anywhere, not this thinking, because you just want to talk. At the end of the day, if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. And I said, Don Lemon, when I seen it and I was watching his live that day, he said, "Oh, they have people over here. Let's just go talk to these people over here." I don't think nobody came and told me, "Hey, let's go to the church." You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we have to speak truth to power and not be afraid. And that's the thing. And they're trying to silence a big broadcaster, a big person who have a microphone that can speak truth to power, and they're trying to silence him. And it's not fair and it's not right at the end of the day. But thank you for letting me come up.
Yeah, no, you can just go ahead, Blue Honey Pot.
Okay, so what happened was this group that planned this protest, they have done several protests in Minnesota, in the area, against state house members in front of their homes. I mean, they've done all different types of protests for years, going back with George Floyd. They are an organization. They know what they're doing. Her last name is Armstrong. I'm not sure how to pronounce her first name, but they have had successful protests in getting some changes made in their area. They do different things. Now, they had this planned. Someone, I'm sure, dropped the seed to Don. He showed up. It looked like they were in like maybe a strip mall parking lot. And he interviewed her there. And they talked about how some of the people there were white so that they would be on the front lines and it wouldn't be all the brown people, this, that, and a third. He then followed them to the church. He knew where he was going and what was going to happen. They then busted up in the church. He followed and interviewed the preacher, which Dani's speaking to. The man asked him to leave several times. And he still didn't actually leave. He went out front of the church and interviewed people leaving. Now, I feel sure Don knew that he had a possibility of getting arrested for this. Any of us, and Dani, I hope will back me up on this, when you choose to go to these protests or to do these things, you are taking, obviously, your life in your own hands now, as well as the option that you could be arrested. Whether it's valid or not, they're going to do what they want to do. The part I'm confused about, Dani, is how do we, like I said in the comments, so when the kids sat down at the lunch counter and they told them to leave and they didn't, and then they went through what those people did to them and ended up getting arrested. Things like that ended up making changes. So are we going to have to do extreme things today in 2026 to bring the attention?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's my question for you. I back you in everything you're saying. I don't think you're against Don Lemon. You're exactly right. It's not in my circle. I can't do anything about it. But what is a good protest? What is the good trouble versus where's that line?
Give me just a couple of seconds. Give me. I'm gonna address that in just a second. So, Elaine, let me say this. Let me just say this. What you just said in the comments, when you said this is the end of our free speech, and Chris said we don't talk like that in this space, Chris is actually correct. We don't, because this is not the end of free speech, and we don't speak shit we don't want to exist, period. So your profile says we got to hold on to hope now, but you're in the comments talking about, girl, this is the end of free speech. Make up your mind. Either you got your hope or you don't. Let me just check that right now. It doesn't matter how long you have been in here. We are going to hold each other accountable for the words that come out of our mouth. And so Chris knows in this space, I'm a huge believer of, I don't speak things that I don't want to be the case, because I understand the power of words. I especially understand the power of collective words. When a bunch of people agree and start speaking the same shit, it's no wonder it comes to pass. So no, ma'am, I don't speak those things in this space, and we don't speak like that in this space. And if you've been in this space longer than Chris, you should already know that. And you should just say, thank you, Chris, for that reminder. Now, next, I'm going to say this. I want everybody to stop recommending shit to me about Don Lemon, and I'm going to tell you why. Don Lemon is rich as fuck and going to be just fine. Don Lemon is in my third circle. I can't do nothing about it. I can't influence it. I don't have anything. So this is my opinion, and I'm saying it real clear. Here's my opinion. I do not believe Don Lemon should have been Leonard, whatever, right? Since you want to be silly, I've been watching your ass just spout off for a minute and I'm tired of watching you. Blocked. So listen, Don, I'm just saying, listen, folks, I don't believe Don should have been arrested. I do not believe charges are going to stick. I do believe he's going to be just fine. I do believe he knew he's putting himself in a position to be targeted. Now, don't get me wrong, everybody can be targeted. And he participated in an action in a private church that he knew elevated his risks of being targeted. That's simple. There's nothing. I would hazard a guess that if you ask Don if he knew that was a possibility, he would say yes. And you can be okay with his actions. I'm not asking you to not be okay. Y'all, journalists have been getting arrested in this country for a long ass time. Journalists have been getting arrested. Period. So let me just be very, very clear. So Renee, you can say he has the right as a journalist to cover a story. That does not mean he has the right as a journalist to cover the story inside a private building. That would be like Don Lemon saying, I'm going to cover a story about Renee and I'm going to do it in your damn living room. And when you ask me to leave, I ain't going nowhere. You understand how much sense that don't make?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that's true.
He has the right to cover the story, but not in the damn church when they tell him to leave. And I watched the pastor 3 times say leave. And Don said, okay, but what do you think about da-da-da? So my point is whatever's going to happen is going to happen. He might end up with a misdemeanor. If he ends up with anything, nothing is going to change in your life or my life. And nothing is changing about what ICE is doing on the streets of Minnesota as a result of this church thing. And we would talk about, well, at least he exposed the pastor. Listen, do y'all know how many pastors in the United States of America need to be exposed for some shit? And that still don't mean that you expose them from standing inside the middle of their damn church? Can we please stop acting like exposing this pastor somehow had any impact on the 8 people that have already died in relationship to ICE in 2026? 8, you all. 8. Today's January 30th. So when I ask you, was it good trouble? I would say, yeah, that was good trouble. I would ask you, was it necessary trouble? Was it good, necessary trouble that was impactful and had some significant benefit? Like, I'm going to tell y'all now, if my ass is going to jail, it's going to be for some good shit. It ain't going to be about, it's not going to be about some random, I'm just saying. I mean, am I wrong?
Well, no, you're not wrong. No. I do agree. I do agree on that. It's going to be some good stuff. But at the end of the day, we all have to stand for something.
Right. So my point is, when you choose what you're standing for, Annie, they just released Epstein files today. Annie, they just released some Epstein files today.
But thank you, Dani. I have
all
to right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sis. Your love. You're welcome. Renee, what's up?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know if it's a good morning, but anyway, I'm not going to address what the Don Lemon thing. I'm just not going to address that. But you talked about ICE, and can I share a little story? And I'll be quick. So, and it's probably something, we already know this, but a long time ago, I was dating this guy who turned out to be a white supremacist. White tea supremacist, whatever. No, I can't say that word. Found out down the line. I saw him on the news. He was supposed to be at the Charlottesville March. Remember, back when Trump first took office, he was supposed to be a keynote speaker. He lost his job as a union rep here. Anyway, last night I was talking to a friend about it, and he has a podcast. He has a podcast right now, and it's really alt-right kind of stuff. And he and a friend did a podcast on the 22nd of January. And the guy he was on there with said, and I can share this with you offline. The guy said, "Oh yeah, I was gonna go and apply for ICE, but the deadline for the 40 and up was over. I missed it." And they were just talking about, and I'm gonna paraphrase, how fun it would be to basically get out there. And they talked about Renee and how she kind of basically deserved that. But my point is, yes, this ICE is nothing but them. And so for me, it's just really scary and frightening. I don't know.
Yeah. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think, I just watched something on PBS. I think it was yesterday, where there are people that have been studying the alt-right for a decade or more. I think it was NPR. Anyway, and they were talking about advertisements for ICE, and they were talking about posts for ICE and all of those different things. And the type of verbiage that was being used and how it could be tied back to YT supremacist things and all of that. I hear you, and I know that it's there. I think that's my point, is that I just, in my humble opinion, if I'm going to expose the pastor of a church for being the head of this particular division or group of ICE agents, I'm going to do it in a way in which I give them nothing to use against me. And you all can say, well, they would find something. That might be true, but I'm not going to make it easy for them. Right? I'm not going to do something and give you and just hand deliver for you, gift wrap for you, something to discredit me, something to distract from the point, something to attack me or come at me. Like, I'm not going to do that for you. And in my humble opinion, that's the way they did this. And so this is why I say, so listen, protesting, y'all, in and of itself doesn't necessarily, just because you protest doesn't mean it's good. Is your protest effective? Does your protest have a goal? Does your protest keep the issue front and center? These are the things that people have to be asking. It's not just about, oh, I protest and I'm in the streets. Because, Ash, nobody flipped tables. And why they would have no business flipping tables. It's not their church. So my whole thing is this whole debate about what happened is, for me, it's just very simple, right? I do not believe Don Lemon should have been arrested. I do not believe that there will be charges that stick. I do believe he will come out better for it, as is evidenced today with thousands and thousands of people flocking to his platform and all the other things to talk about it, right? And so I think, well, Valerie, I don't know what his goal was. To be quite frank, I don't know what his goal was. And for me, I would want the goal to be something that actually impacts people. Right? So for me, what was the point? When people say they protested at this church, share with me the point. And share with me how the point has anything to do with addressing the situation that we have in this country with ICE, with this administration, with all of that. And to me, listen, I don't care about exposing a pastor. There's about a bajillion of them. And right now, the attention is on Don and press, and the attention is not on ICE and the questionable relationship between a government office and a nonprofit. And to me, that's the story, is to dig in and find out, okay, so did this church use their relationship in any way, shape, or form to get any special federal funding? Did they get any grants? Were they using that nonprofit as part of a staging facility for operations? Did they have meetings on church property? Like, all those, that to me is a much bigger, more effective story, because the story that a pastor of a church also happens to be head of a group of ICE, that's not a damn story to me, because I know corrupt ass, racist ass, hateful ass pastors all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I see the point on that. But my other thing is, we're not talking. I don't know if you mentioned the other reporter, Georgia Fort, I think her name is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they took her in as well. And I don't know, I didn't see any footage of her. Like, was she, maybe you know, was she in the church as well with Dawn? Was she outside?
I don't know. I didn't watch all of the footage. But yeah, I didn't watch all of the footage.
Oh.
So like, I just happened to see Dawn.
It just came out.
No, I'm talking about of when it happened. Like, yeah. So, and let me just, if I'm just going to be 100% real. So y'all do realize that we've always had people with racial agendas in churches, in police departments, in whatever, you know what I mean? I think, they could have been waiting outside on the sidewalk and interviewed people, and maybe, thank you, Witch, for that time check. I think, imagine being outside on the sidewalk as a journalist and me actually having documentation in my hand and saying to pastors, hey, did you know, saying to people from the congregation, hey, did you know that your pastor is also heading up this ICE division here in Minneapolis and here in Minnesota? Can you share with me your thoughts about that? What do you feel about that? Does that bother you? Right? Do you know if the church is being utilized and da 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 da? Right, Darlene, that's fine that he did that last week. I'm talking about the actual day, rather than go stand inside, and whether y'all like it or not, churches are private buildings. They do not belong to the public. So that's it. So,
well, thanks, Dani. I'm going to drop down.
You're welcome, Renee.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And I can imagine that most of them didn't answer, Darlene, because listen, you don't sit under your pastor and not know how they feel about things like this. I'm just saying, you don't typically sit in church under your pastor and not have an idea how they feel about issues like this. I didn't say he should have done anything. What I said is these were things that could have been done instead of the other things. This is my thing. I do not support giving the enemy things to use against you. I just think so for me, I want to look at the way I can have the biggest impact with the least amount of risk and keep the issue at the focus. That's for me. I'm not a Trump supporter, C-Cat. So, you know what I mean? So this is my thing. I think about how I can have the biggest impact with the least amount of risk and keep the issue at the forefront. That for me is the focus. Okay? So here's what I got to do, folks, because Bella Magoo got out of school early, and that means I have to go get her off the bus. So this side of the world, Substack, Facebook, YouTube. I'm going to close down for here. I will be back in about 40 minutes. Rohan, please don't spam the comments, please. I'll be back for you guys in about 40 minutes.